Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Over Theologizing. Today, we have a bonus episode. This is a Thanksgiving special, I guess you could say. We have Pastor Daniel on today. I thought it was a really good conversation. We do hope to have Daniel back on for a full episode in the future. But in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we are putting out an extra episode this week for your ears. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you do, let us know. Let us know how badly you want to have Daniel back. Thank you. How's it going, guys? This is going to be a weird episode. You can tell by the intro. We got a bonus episode, our first bonus episode. We're not like 10-minute Bible hour. We don't have a cool intro. Maybe one day when we have bigger budget. But we do have a very special guest here today, all the way over from Scotland. And what a generous guy. It is 10:42 your time as we record. We have Pastor Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, the way you introduced me there made it sound like I flew over to record with you, but I am just speaking to you on the internet. So
yeah. Well, it's still, we still appreciate the dedication for sure. I know you say you're a night owl, but still, that's a late time to go on the Over Theologizing podcast.
Well, it's been dark since 4:15. It's Scotland in the winter, so yeah. No, thanks for having me. It's really good to finally be on with you guys, and I say finally, like it's been 4 years or something. But yeah, I'm excited. We've been talking about this for a little while, so.
Yeah, we've been trying to get you on for what? You say 4 years. It might have been 4 months by now. Our show hasn't been out that long, but we've been planning, and I think we may have been talking for at least 4 months about this. But I think the listener will appreciate and see why we've been asking you so much.
Well, the one thing I have to say is you need to. The tireder I am, the Scottisher my accent gets. So if I
we're gonna have to put captions.
Yeah, if I start sounding like Shrek or something, you have to tell me.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
So how are things for you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, one of my kids was unwell and was not at school today, so I had the pleasure of working from home, which was great. So I'm just getting ready to preach on the Magnificat on Sunday morning. So yeah, I spent a day hitting the books.
Nice.
Yep, it's been good.
Yeah, you have a nice library. I've seen. It's a beautiful library. I don't know if you saw it. Well, obviously you didn't see. This isn't a video podcast. Nice, Joe. But Pete has a phenomenal library. I think I did mention it in the episode, but his wall, and we're just going to mention Pete every episode, I guess.
Yeah.
But his wall is it's just magnificent. It's something to behold.
He should get a prize for the best layman's library.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Does that count for AI? Can you get that award?
Yeah, he has infinite books at his disposal.
Yeah. I was having a horrible day today. We've had a lot of sickness going around too. I was sick on Thanksgiving, had to stay home, but I was sick today too and still worked, and I was just having a rough day. And then I saw a bumper sticker that was supposed to make my day worse, I think, but actually made my day amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, and it said, the bumper sticker said, I hope you have the day you deserve. And if I can, use our namesake for this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and over theologize and say, I am so glad that I don't have to have the day I deserve. Yeah. I deserve so much worse than just having to work and be sick. And so that little bumper sticker, I think, even though the person who put it on there intended for it to be, probably not what I took it as. God and his superintending will intended it to brighten my day.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
You think, let me stop for a second and imagine what a day I deserve would look like. No, this is better. This is better than that.
Yeah. Well, and in reality, everybody that has a day and is alive still, your day is better than you deserve for sure.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that was interesting. But all that aside, all the small talk, we're gonna get down to nuts and bolts. We don't have much time, Daniel.
Well, I am a little nervous now because I have not been I've not been prepped on what this is supposed to be about. So you're going to
Yeah.
guide me. You're going to tell me what we're talking about, and
Well,
I've already made you promise to stop me if I'm over, if I'm monologuing. So um,
to be fair, I haven't prepped for what this is going to be about either, but I don't think I have to.
okay.
Nobody knows this other than us two and also Tyler, but we have recorded a podcast with each other before.
Yeah, that's true. It's lost in the archive somewhere.
Yeah, I do still have it, and maybe one day, if we get 1 million subscribers, I'll put it out. Is that a good call to action?
No, not subscribers. What you want is, like $1 million per episode on Patreon or something.
Oh,
That's what you
there
want.
we go. Yeah, I guess we'd have to get on Patreon
Top
first,
level
but
perk.
yeah, yeah. Everybody who subscribes $1 million a month will give you the extra Daniel episode, and you'll be happy with it.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
I can't remember what we talked about. So
yeah. Well, I think a lot of it's going to overlap, but that's okay because I think it's fascinating anyway. And uh yeah, so anyway, as mentioned before several times now, Daniel is from Scotland. And Scotland I find to be a very fascinating point of conversation as far as the church goes. Tons of church history there, obviously, but um the way that the church is today is maybe not the greatest. You can describe that. What do you think?
hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, I think the first thing to say, probably most people who listen will know this, but Scotland is a significant way further down the path of secularization than America is. I think I read recently that maybe for the first time in American history, less than 50% of people would describe themselves as Christians. In Scotland, we've been below that threshold for a good long time.
Mm,
We There's some research that I was able to see recently about Scotland in terms of church attendance at evangelical churches, and if you accept the broadest possible definition for the word evangelical, then there's maybe 2% of the Scottish population would be in an evangelical church on any given Sunday morning. So
wow.
we're that's kind of the baseline for our situation in terms of the church. Um, we have a national church set up. It's not officially established the way that it used to be, but the Church of Scotland would be our national church, and is probably in line with what you guys would call a mainline denomination in terms of a legacy of cultural influence and a current lack of biblical fidelity. That would be the two kind of major facets of what that looks like for us
Yeah.
here in Scotland. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, man, that's not even the first time I've heard you say that, but every time I hear it, it's just like, wow, 2%. That's
Yeah.
incredibly disheartening. Uh,
Well, it's been a real shift in mindset, I think, for the generation of pastors that came before me to accept that we are a mission field more than we are a Christian nation. At least
yeah.
in terms of demographics, that is simply true.
Yeah.
um,
Mathematically, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's been a hard thing, I think, for many of the men that came before us to accept. But the good news is that there is an up and coming generation of pastors and church planters who understand the challenge that we're facing and are prepared to meet it head on. I think, at least anecdotally, I know a few, I know a few folks, and
Yeah.
the the mentality among younger pastors is let's focus on doctrinal clarity, let's focus on the gospel, let's be fearless and tenacious about evangelism, and let's just preach the word and see what God does.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of something I was going to ask when you said that initially is, you know, a lot of churches, even though a lot of, maybe Pew Research or a lot of places will say that even the majority in America are not classified as Christian. Um, there's still most churches, at least in my area, send missionaries out somewhere.
Hmm.
So is that something around you where it's more just well, you said this generation, I guess, is different, but is it more just we need to get going right here where we're at?
Well, Scotland has started to receive missionaries from nations that we once sent
Mm,
missionaries to.
wow.
There are Zambian missionaries who are coming to Scotland, and you may know or you may not, but there's a city in Zambia called Livingston, named after Dr. David Livingstone, who first brought the gospel to that land. He was from just up the road from here, less than 100 miles from here, and he I've been to Zambia, and they now look upon Scotland as a land in desperate need of the gospel, and so they're
Wow.
sending missionaries here, and we're thankful for it because we need it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a like I say, it's a mission field. Yeah, we are as unreached as some third world countries, if I can use that terminology.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean it's like we were talking about before, it's just mathematically so, and it's really shocking. I mean, really, I guess it's not shocking. It's just the heart of man, and
Hmm.
I'm not going to blame any particular denomination or set of pastors or anything, but that's just when culture shifts that direction towards godlessness,
Hmm.
uh, and the church is left unattended. That's just what happens, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in the middle of it, and yeah, but thanks be to God. There's been a an uptick
Yeah.
in in church attendance, especially in evangelical churches. I don't think they have seen this in the national church, but in the conservative, evangelical, reformed-ish churches in Scotland, outside of the mainstream, essentially, there has
Hmm.
been an uptick in church attendance, and there has been, a real shift towards um, let's let's stop trying to court the culture and let's start trying to simply be faithful. And yeah, so that's where we're at.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
an
and that's
exciting time.
progress. I mean, I not in a weird way. I mean, I say progress, and usually when you're talking about things like this, progress is usually in reality it's regression. But
Hmm.
no, that's progress. I mean, that shift in mindset I think is huge. And you mentioned, even the set of pastors that that are dedicated and willing to be fearless and just
Hmm.
be about the gospel. I mean, that's huge progress. And do you think that uptick is from that effort?
Um, I don't know. There's been again. I struggle to know how much of this is a UK focused, kind of phenomenon, or at least the terminology around it. But the last year or so, there has been, there have been reports of what people are calling a quiet revival. Is this
Yeah.
a phrase that's familiar? So, um, there's a whole bunch of things. I think some of it is the result of a pendulum swing away from the kind of progressive cultural tides that have. I'm mixing metaphors. Tides don't pendulum swing, but
No, that's okay.
the way that there was a huge push through the late 2010s and into the early 2020s towards a kind of cultural progressivism that was every bit as prevalent here as it was in the States. And I think probably influenced a lot by what was happening in the US. Our politics, our culture, our media is heavily influenced by what happens across the Atlantic,
Yeah.
and I
For
think
better or for worse.
and I think the swing backwards here started sooner than it did in the States. Uh, I live in a small rural town. There's a lot of farming that goes on around here, and the kind of inherent conservatism that comes along with that. It never really caught on here, and there were people in our area who are much more willing to speak against the overreach of this kind of progressive ideology than you would ever have found in the cities. But still, even in the cities, I think some of these things didn't catch in Scotland the same way they did in the States. And so some of it is just, I think, a reaction against what people saw as even, we're speaking mostly about non-religious people, not people who wouldn't set foot inside a church, who
Yeah.
still thought this is not right. This is going a bit far. This doesn't make sense. This is, counter scientific, counter logical.
Yeah.
So there was some of that. It would be hard to really put a measure on the influence of people like Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, some of these more conservative commentators who, I don't know if you can call Joe Rogan conservative, but
I was gonna say conservative in quotes for some of those, but I
by
mean more conservative than
I mean, but certainly by the by the kind of media standards,
with the shifted goalposts. Yeah.
People who are willing to question the overall drive of where these cultural movements were going.
Yeah.
That's had an effect over here as much as I think it has over in the States. More recently, the stuff around Charlie Kirk as
Yeah.
well. Again, a little bit of an influence happening over here from American political events. And that's just looking at it from a purely humanistic point of view.
Right.
We believe that God is at work,
Mm-hmm.
that He has been at work in the hearts of people who have seen the bankruptcy and the emptiness of the secular, materialistic, atheistic worldview.
Yeah.
I think, when I trained for the ministry, I graduated from my seminary in 2012. And I graduated into a culture and into an environment where the default expectation was no one wants to hear about the gospel. No one is interested in Christianity. Any headway that you're going to make in talking about Jesus will be fighting against aggressive hostility to what you want to say. And so we were very well trained in a kind of cultural and philosophical apologetic that was trying to create space for the gospel, assuming that no one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of tenor of ministry from when I graduated until just last year. And yet the upcoming generation of teenagers and young adults, young men especially, you don't have to push. They're asking, they're showing up at church, they're asking questions about Jesus. I'm being stopped in the street by people who want you're that minister, aren't you? And they want to talk about the gospel. I mean, I carried out a funeral just a couple of weeks ago for a man who was not a believer, and yet his widow asked me to do the funeral, and I said, if I come and do this funeral, I will be reading from the Bible. I'm going to be speaking about Jesus. And she said, yeah, that's what I want. I mean, I just want to hear some hope. I want to hear something about God. Can you do that? And I was like,
Wow.
absolutely. So I got up and I spoke and I preached the gospel at this funeral. And a young man who was at the funeral got in touch with me and he said, I really want to get a coffee. Can I sit down with you? And he just opened up his heart and said, I feel like the Holy Spirit's hunting me down. I feel like God wants me to follow after Jesus.
Yeah.
I was really taken by what you said at the funeral. Never heard anything like that before. Can we talk more about this? And just he just has this sense that Jesus wants him. And this is a guy who's like 19, 20 years old. And just these are the kind of things that increasingly in small ways we're seeing across the nation.
Well, and I was going to say it really isn't very much different. I can't think of very many differences at all, at least where I'm at. Middle America, again, I was saved in 2015, but I know before that, even like you said, 2012, pretty much everybody, the expectation is pretty much atheism, just secularist,
Mm.
humanistic atheism. And I really like what you said there. I mean, I really do think, first of all, it is unscientific. Science doesn't disagree with God. God
Mm.
created the world and everything in it, and so science lines up, it turns out, with God's creation, and also lines up with faith in God. I really like what Jesse
Right.
said on the last episode, that faith allows us to take the ramp of reason
That's
before
great.
we take that leap. That was such a good turn of phrase.
Yeah.
But yeah, along with that, there's just no hope, and
Mm.
that young lady at that funeral recognized that. Hopefully, she recognizes that there is hope in Christ, and it's just awesome how God lines
Yeah.
those things up.
Well, she came to church the Sunday following the funeral.
Yeah.
Her mother came to church.
Wow.
Her brother-in-law is already a member, but his wife also came to church that Sunday,
Man,
and
praise God.
it's just like, um, I've made it a mission. Well, I haven't made it a mission. I've determined that whenever I'm called upon to do a funeral, I will always preach the gospel.
Yeah.
And as a mission strategy, it's it's not glamorous, it's not high impact, but every opportunity to speak about Jesus to a room full of people who otherwise would never hear it,
Yeah.
I'm going to take that.
Yeah.
And I know that 95% of the people who were in that room had never been in a church before. I know that there was every opportunity, given the fact that it was a funeral for someone who wasn't a believer. That the sort of ordinary thing to do is be a little bit squeamish and tiptoe around things, but it was an opportunity to speak about Jesus and just to say, I know that most people here don't believe in the Lord, but I'm a Christian minister, and I want to tell you about the difference that Jesus makes on a day like today. And that was my opening, and that's what people are responding to. Yeah, I think there was a time not too long ago where you, like I say, you had to create that space, and it was
Yeah.
long and hard, and there was the dynamic of you have to build a relationship with someone first before you can
Right.
have the right to speak into their life about spiritual things.
Yeah.
And there was a time where, in a pragmatic way, that made sense. Now it's like people are knocking down the door to say, yeah, stop talking about the weather. What's the stuff about Jesus? Can
Yeah.
you just tell me how to be saved, please? And
Yeah.
it's remarkable. So I mean, there's a wider atmosphere of openness to spiritual things, and I do mean spiritual things. I don't just mean Christian things.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
we're part of a theology group chat, and a few months ago, I took a picture of the top 10 bestsellers in our local bookstore, and I think 9 of the top 10 were to do with manifesting, witchcraft, or basically about finding sexual fulfillment outside your marriage. And it's
Yeah.
like, people are looking for fulfillment. They're looking for it in material things, they're looking for it in spiritual things, and they're looking for it in very unhealthy places.
Yeah.
And yet, at the same time, that openness to spiritual things more generally is creating inroads for the gospel.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and you use the term quiet revival. I've heard people say that. I've also heard people say slow revival or something like that. I tend to shy away from the word revival typically myself,
Mm.
but it is a useful term sometimes. And I do think right now we're seeing God change lots of people's hearts, but also I think there's a lot of chaff coming in with the wheat just because of that curiosity. And that's something that, whether you're in Scotland, in the US, Australia, no matter where you are, if there is that uptick, you just kind of have to keep a level head. I'm not saying you can't get excited, but you do kind of have to keep a level head and realize that some of these people are going to fall away. Not all these seeds are on good soil.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally agree. I think the part of the reason we're getting excited is that, and I know many ministers who are a generation above me, or even two generations above me, who are looking at retirement, and they have never known a church landscape that wasn't in precipitous decline.
Right.
And so the fact that there are people walking into their churches, the fact that the pews might even just be full of people who are not believers but who are willing to listen.
Yeah.
This is why people over here are just getting giddy, because
Yeah.
it's so different to everything that we've known since the 1960s.
Yeah.
Since the last major, I mean, the number of people in any given Baptist church in Scotland that will locate the moment of their conversion in the middle of a Billy Graham meeting.
Yeah.
That was the high point of Christian engagement in Scotland in the 20th century, and it's been nothing but down since then. And
Mm.
so I have a lot of patience for the guys who are just turning backflips, because it's just wonderful to see something that is not church after church after church closing its doors
Yeah.
because there are not enough people to even pay for the lights.
Yeah.
I kind of forgive them a little bit of giddiness.
No,
Um,
yeah, yeah. And I'm not trying to say they shouldn't
yeah,
be excited. I'm just saying, in like my church, we've seen a bunch of people, like tons of new people come in the past year, but we've also seen quite a few of them and even some long-term people leave.
yeah,
And that curiosity, you just have to keep aware of that and kind of get ahead of it with some people. I'm not saying you should like target individuals and expect that they're the Mary Baker Eddy type or anything.
right.
I don't know if that's too deep of a cut, but anyway, uh, yeah, I'm not trying to say they shouldn't be excited. I'm just saying, it's you got to be aware at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that's the benefit of a good theological grounding, is that you have the tools to look at this and recognize that um, the the fact that the church pews are full is not necessarily a sign that all these souls are saved. But you can commit yourself to faithfulness to the Scripture, and we'll let God work out the softening or hardening of the hearts in
Yeah.
front of you as He wills, severally. So
Yeah. Well, and that's really, I mean, as a pastor, I guess that's just what God calls you to do all the time, is just faithfully present the gospel to the best of your ability. And
mm,
whether there's 2 or 20 or 200, and, keep going. That's something else I wanted to talk about is, I think there's a lot of people, especially new Christians. There's a ton of new Christians, but there's just a lot of people in general that don't really think about the personal, the physical, the emotional strain that it takes to be a pastor.
mm.
How long have you been a pastor?
So in various ways, I've been serving in ministry since 2012. I was
Gotcha.
an associate pastor. I've been a youth pastor. I have been in my current role for 6 years as the pastor of a church.
You've seen it
Um,
all.
I've seen a bit of everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Um,
what do you think are some ways? Um, we'll just start out, I guess, with this question. What do you think are some ways that maybe congregants could make it easier on you as a pastor? And I'm totally asking you to call out all of your congregants and tell them how they're lacking. No, I'm just kidding.
no, I'm not going to do that. um, yeah,
That's a hard question.
it is a hard question. Yeah, I'm thinking about it because um, serving as the pastor of a church, there's a weight that comes with that can't really be lifted, because it's just the nature of the calling.
Yeah.
You're and I know that some pastors get they get very downcast, and they're weighed down by the demands of ministry, and often by the kind of intransigence of the flock. And I don't say that only pointing outwards, because that's me as well sometimes. Um, what could your question was, what can congregants do
Yeah, so I just think that a lot of times, and I'm,
To make it easier. That's what you
yeah,
mean.
if we're gonna call ourselves out on this show, like I I'll just say I think there's a lot of times, yeah, maybe you give your pastor like a grill on Pastor Appreciation Month or whatever. That's great. I love that. Maybe you give them a little raise whenever your church can. That's awesome. Don't muzzle the ox. Do
Hmm.
that. But I think a lot of people expect a lot of their pastors with maybe not even again not with bad intentions, but and like you said, it does come along with the job. There are certain
Yeah.
things that a pastor is called to do that a typical lay person in the church is not called to do.
Hmm.
But just in general, maybe just on a given Lord's Day or just even not on the Lord's Day throughout the
Yeah.
week, what do you think are some things maybe that a congregant could do to help out their pastor?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Pastor Appreciation Month, that is not something that's made it across the Atlantic. So
Oh, gotcha. We
that,
need to get it over there.
that would be, yeah, if anyone wants to take up Pastor Appreciation Month in Scotland, that would be great. Um, yeah, no, so I think, so, you want to, so you've got kids, right? So with kids, you want to reward the behaviors you want to see more of. You want to incentivize, the good things. And I think one thing that congregations might consider doing is that when their pastor does something well, that they just say so.
Yeah.
I think it can't just be a Scottish thing, although we are level one, like top class complainers. But it can't just be a Scottish thing that a pastor will hear immediately when he does something that the church doesn't like, and may never ever know that someone in the church appreciates them even when they do. And so the number one thing I would say is that you probably leave church on a Sunday morning when the pastor has preached a very good sermon, and you probably leave thinking, "Yeah, that was really good," but I bet he already knows that. No, he does not.
Yeah.
He needs you. He needs you to say that. And this is not out of a. I don't think anyway. Maybe I'm exposing too much of myself, but this is not out of an unhealthy desire for praise. I don't think. Um, I think it's just the
Well,
yeah
if I can cut you off there, I mean,
yeah
I truly don't think it. At least with you, I'm sure there are those pastors out there. Like if you ask Stephen Furtick, it maybe that's a different answer, but uh, I know you pretty well. I don't know your heart. God knows your heart, but I do truly think it's just you desire to edify God's people, and having feedback on that definitely would help a lot.
yeah. Well, I think what it is that the flaws in your own preaching are very, very apparent to you.
Yeah.
But actually, the strengths of your own preaching often can be completely invisible. And it can just be really beneficial just to hear someone say, that actually that was helpful. Or there's one guy who he visits our church. He's not a member of our church, but he visits every now and then, and he has this wonderful ministry, I think, where he will say one very specific thing from the sermon that he was encouraged by or blessed by, and that specificity is really is very helpful, because it shows this is not just someone walking out and saying, "Oh, thank you, pastor," "Thank you,
Yeah.
whatever," it's it's someone who said, "Yeah, this particular thing you said, I really appreciated that line." Anyway, so I think just showing appreciation with a word is a really beneficial thing. Something a little bit more, maybe a little bit more costly that I could raise as a possibility. So we're in the midst at the moment of a an attempt where we're trying to firm up our doctrinal commitments as a church. We're trying to come to something of a conclusion, or well, we're trying to adopt a new statement of faith or a confession of faith.
Mhm.
And there are some things on the confession of faith that we've presented as the elders that not everyone in the church agrees with. Um, and something that I was hoping to hear that I think I've not heard quite so much is members of the congregation coming and saying, I'm not sure I see this the same way as you. Can you help me understand why you see
Yeah.
it this way? Because it's not how I see it. And I think that kind of teachable spirit is so valuable. What I think what we tend to hear when there's a doctrinal difference in a church is, I don't agree with you and I'm not going to shift.
Yeah.
Whereas even something as simple as saying, can you just help me understand why you see it this way? And then at the end of the conversation, they might say, yeah, I'm still not convinced. That's still a much healthier attitude, I think, to the kind of teaching ministry of your church, is to be able to say, I would like to learn why it is my pastor thinks about this differently.
Mhm.
Um, so that's maybe another thing.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
I mean, I'll just expand on that. Like, um, well, first of all, I'm not a pastor. I've never preached on the Lord's Day. I've done like hour-long Bible studies, and I've preached at non-church venues. And yeah, the whole thing about your flaws being evident to you is very real. Yeah. And then there's things that people have brought up, and I'm just like, yeah, but that was just what I was supposed to say.
hmm,
You feel like it's so plain.
yeah.
But to expand on that, we've talked about the importance of church membership ad nauseum at this point on this podcast, and that's because it is very important. I mean, that's if you are, as the church, the bride of Christ, He calls you to be unified. Those things shouldn't just be pushed aside. And I disagree with you. I'm not willing to learn. We'll
Hmm,
just agree to disagree and get over it.
yeah.
As congregants, we should be extremely willing, especially from the man that God, well, the group of men in Baptist polity,
Hmm,
ideally,
yeah.
the group of elders, but that God is called to be our shepherds. We should definitely be striving for unity with them in any way possible. And there's things that I disagree with my pastor on, and I don't think we'll ever probably agree completely,
Hmm,
and that's totally fine, but at least there's striving, and
yeah.
willingness to be wrong, I think, is
Right.
probably a good way to put it. But yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, that's well put.
Gotcha. You mentioned new statement of faith or confession of faith. um I don't know how many of our listeners aren't big on confessions of faith. I've had a couple reach out that aren't of the reformed type, which is fine. We love you. Uh, but maybe talk about a little bit how important that is. I mean, I've already talked a little bit about doctrinal unity, but just specifically why a confession of faith would be such a big deal.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, in our context, so our church is a member of the Baptist Union of Scotland. Um, when the Baptist Union of Scotland was formed, they made a conscious decision not to produce a confession of faith. They, again, it might just be Scottish people can't get along. I, and I don't know if you ever go to the Wikipedia page and look at the kind of the family tree of Presbyterianism. It's a tangled mess, and that's because Scottish people were involved. And I mean, the decision that the union made back then was, we will unite around a very small group of doctrines that we can say, this is what unites us as Baptists of all stripes. They decided, we're not going to make a statement on the Calvinism Arminianism debate. We're not going to produce a statement on dispensationalism or anything like that. So the basis of the union is actually a very short document. You could fit it on a postcard. And the logic behind that was, there's so much that we agree on as Baptists, which goes without saying. We don't need to put it all in a document and write it down and have it as part of our union. And 150 years ago, that was probably a true statement.
Mm,
And now, many of the things that didn't need saying now need to be said.
yeah.
Um, and this has kind of borne itself out slowly in various ways in the life of our union. There are, there's a huge majority of churches that are solid, conservative, evangelical churches. They may not be reformed, or they may not be complementarian as we would be, but they're solid. They're churches that you could feel confident walking into, that you're going to hear the gospel. You're going to hear someone stand up there who believes that the Bible is God's word and is going to try to do his level best to expound it in a way that brings glory to God. That's the overwhelming shape of the union. And yet, over the last 20 years, there have been churches that are increasingly, pushing the envelope on what is even orthodox, let alone permissible.
Wow.
And the
Yeah.
reason they have the latitude to do that is because the statement that we have is so thin,
Yeah.
and many of the things that were once givens for a Baptist in Scotland, now they actually need to be stated and they need to be held to a little bit more firmly.
Mm.
So I was at the Baptist Assembly just a couple of weeks ago and had a conversation with one pastor who is moving towards an open theist position, who is sympathetic to universalism. And the thing was, there's nothing in our statement that says you can't be a universalist. There's nothing in
Right.
our statement that says you have to confess that God actually does know all things.
Yeah.
And so it's considerations like this where that latitude is allowed, it will be taken. Where there is room to depart from Orthodox Christianity, it will, over time, it will happen. The cultural pressures and the well, yeah, I guess the cultural pressures. But the issue that we have is that um, the Baptist Union of Scotland has kind of imbibed this idea. I think you must be familiar with this from the States as well, that Baptists, we don't do creeds and confessions. That's just something
Right.
we don't really do.
Yeah. Just the
Uh,
kind of general evangelical view. Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind
Um,
of the most popular view.
Right. And so we have a couple of very distinguished historians in the Baptist Union of Scotland. You may have heard of David Bebbington, the Bebbington Quadrilateral. That was him. He's still a member of a Baptist church in Scotland. There's another historian, Dr. Brian Talbot, who's one of the foremost historians of Baptist history. Both very, very serious, scholars. And someone said, "Well, Baptists don't really do creeds and confessions." And one of them stood up and said, "I'm sorry, that's not just wrong; that's embarrassing. Baptists do creeds and confessions. I'm sorry." And so part of it is trying to reclaim a historic understanding of Baptist identity that has room for creeds and confessions, and part of it is to try to take all that is implicit in the things that we think need no expression, and actually just writing them down so that we are publicly accountable to a standard of doctrine that we can actually be held to. That's my kind of pitch for it. I have there's much more that you could say. Can I recommend The Creedal Imperative by Carl Trueman? Excellent book about
Mm.
why it's important to have creeds and confessions. Although I think the new edition of it is called Crisis of Confidence. But we definitely would check that out. He makes an excellent case for why confessions are valuable, for why they're essential, and for why, especially as Protestants, we should want to have something that is a subordinate standard under Scripture
Yeah.
to
Well,
hold to.
and
So,
oh, I'm sorry. Um, yeah. Well, and the thing is about it, these are battles that have already been fought.
mm,
All these things, whether it's open theism or universalism or whatever heresy might creep in,
yeah,
these are all battles through church history that have already been fought. And the it's kind of funny because the non-believer looks at those things throughout church history and looks at the councils and creeds and goes, "Oh, see, look, they're just picking what they like." And then we look at them and we're like, "Yeah, this is the Holy Spirit working through the church.
yeah,
This is iron sharpening iron, and we're not figuring things out, but
yeah,
we're sharpening ourselves as the church." And then it's like throughout time, as like I was kind of saying at the beginning, as the church is sort of left unattended in that way,
mm.
we just get duller and duller.
Well,
And
yeah. Dr. Bebbington made an excellent point just the other week, where he said that if a person suffers from amnesia and they don't know their history, they have a problem. Something has
yeah,
gone wrong with them.
yeah,
And if an institution doesn't know its own history, and if a denomination doesn't know its own history, it has a problem. Because the first thing that someone will say when they wake up with amnesia is, "Who am I?" You can't understand your identity without a sense of your history. And I think that simple point, it's such a simple point,
Yeah.
but it's unfortunately it's something that we really have needed to be reminded of.
Yeah, well, and I think sadly most people, well, I was going to say most people aren't interested in that, but it actually does seem like at least in some demographics there is a little more interest in being rooted in historical Christianity.
Hmm.
And honestly, just to show our cards as Baptists, that's probably a weak point for most of us. Not
Yeah.
that there isn't a rich history there is, but just that we don't know it. And I'm guilty of that personally. I need to get some more Carl Truman books, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean the sort of form of Baptist history that a lot of certainly American Baptists would be familiar with is the kind of landmark version of Baptist history, where there's a trail of blood down through history of true Baptists who kept popping up out of nowhere,
yeah,
and this is not it doesn't really carry the weight of historical inquiry, uh, but yeah, the um, that rootedness, that connectedness to the Church Catholic, the small c Catholicity of understanding our history and understanding our position within the stream of the greater story of the Christian Church. We get very easily lost, and it's much easier to imagine where some of the very peculiar practices of evangelical churches come from when we don't have that sense of history, when we don't understand ourselves in some way in continuity with everything that's come before. Um,
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's the solid churches that need to do that, and I think we kind of get caught up in, understandably so. I mean, I don't want to say I'm playing devil's advocate. That seems a little bit disrespectful, but it is understandable how we can kind of get caught up in what's happening now and just try and take it head on and fight these battles, whatever we're facing, whether like you were talking about witchcraft or whatever
mm,
in your area is the most popular thing, and kind of forget to focus on what got us here. But
yeah,
that's what happens when you don't.
yeah.
You just kind of wander off into unorthodoxy, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's a truism at this stage, but whoever doesn't learn history is doomed to repeat it.
Yeah,
And if we don't know our church history, there are no new heresies.
right.
We just keep recycling them. They keep
Yeah,
coming
there's a
back up.
reason why whenever one comes up, they already have a name for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, something else I wanted to ask about being a pastor. Well, I did want to mention as well, if you are a congregant and you listen to this, or you're an elder that doesn't often preach, or maybe you are the preaching pastor and you're on a sabbatical, even. Um, I think it goes without saying, but make time during the week and pray for your pastor. Um, they're constantly going through stuff, physically, mentally, spiritually, you name it. Um, yeah, just be praying for them as they prepare for the sermon, especially, but also just all the duties that they have to do throughout the week. Like when I say prepare, when I say pray for them, I mean like literally set an alarm on your phone.
yeah,
Like do it right now, unless you're driving a car, and then set an alarm for when you're not driving a car. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah,
Set an
yeah,
alarm on your phone. Pray for your pastor. They need it. We
yeah.
all need it, but they really need it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a couple of notes that I've pinned in front of my desk here in my study, and one of them says, uh, "You are not able to give what you have not yourself received.
Hmm.
You can't help anyone if you don't first seek the Lord yourself. And the primary aim of seeking the Lord yourself is not so you can help others, but so you can glorify and enjoy Him." I keep that right there because I need that, and pastors so often are giving out. I mean, I may just be in the realm of cliche at this point, but it is just true that pastors will uh, feel the constant pressure to set aside their own personal devotions because there are other more urgent things that need to be attended to.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have time to pray today. I've got a sermon to write. Should sound insane to us, but it's got this like strange logic to it when you're under pressure, and just that constant necessity to recognize that you can, a glass can only spill what it contains, and it can only contain what you fill it with. And so if you're standing up there in the pulpit and you're actually just you're running on empty, or the contents of your heart have grown stale because they've not been refreshed by daily communion with the Lord, your sermons are going to be stale, or they're
Yeah.
going to be empty because you're empty. So that's true for pastors. If you have, as you say, if you're a member of a church, or if you're a lay elder in a congregation, you have to be on the lookout for the times when your pastor is starting to run dry, or where
Yeah.
his personal spiritual life and sort of devotional environment is starting to become stale. We're called to pay close attention to ourselves and to the flock, but we're only human, and we need people to be paying attention to us as well. Who pastors the pastors is a constant question, and we need someone looking out for us and praying for us, as you say. So,
Yeah. So you're telling me that every pastor doesn't pray as much as Luther did?
well, I mean, no one laments his own prayerlessness as much as Luther,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
it's a it's a constant struggle, a constant battle. I think, the spiritual exposure that you face as a pastor, where Lord's Day after Lord's Day, you're standing up and you're speaking truth, and there's
Hmm.
nothing that the devil hates more than that. And I think it's something that has, you know, it may just be something that has to be experienced to be understood, but yeah, the kind of spiritual burden of preaching and pastoring is it's immense.
Yeah.
We
Well, and Satan
we need
knows
prayer.
who, yeah. Yeah. Satan knows who God set up in that position. He's,
Yeah,
uh, he's aware of it too. He knows your role. So obviously he's gonna go for you a little bit more.
yeah,
I do think there's also a lesson in there for the layperson as well, though. Typically, the excuse for a layperson isn't going to be as godly as I need to write a sermon, but the excuse to not pray for a layperson is probably going to be the football game's on, or I'm just so tired. This is the first one isn't me speaking. I don't care about football, but this one's going to be me speaking. Is I'm so tired after working, and then getting the kids ready for bed and doing all this stuff, and I'd just rather eat and go to sleep.
Hmm.
um yeah, that warning applies to you as well, because it's not like that spiritual battle doesn't exist for you either.
yeah,
I think that's a really good point you made out of my joke, which is an awesome thing to do, is that we all should lament our prayerlessness more.
hmm.
I know I certainly could do better. I think we all probably could.
Yeah. Well, there's the dynamic that someone who is as you grow in your sanctification, you actually come more and more to understand the depth of the remaining corruption that's in your heart.
Yeah.
That no one, no one is more willing to believe that they're a wretched sinner than someone who's already a far way along the path of sanctification.
Yeah.
It's actually the people who have not grown so much in that sanctifying walk that are able to look at themselves and say, "I'm kind of fine." Like,
Yeah.
obviously, there's some issues here, but like by and large, I'm all right. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, they're still
Um,
drinking milk.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's also true of the sense of prayerlessness, that the people that I've known, and I really cannot put myself in this category at all, but the people that I've known who have had the deepest sorrow about their prayerlessness are the ones that I look at and think, maybe one day I will pray as much as that guy.
Yeah.
And I think it's as you depend more and more on the Lord, as your prayer life deepens and gets richer. And this is me on the outside looking in, wishing for this. As your prayer life gets richer and deeper, the more you realize your dependence and your need for the Lord, and the more ludicrous it seems to you, I think, that you don't spend more time praying. Yeah, and it's just I think that's just the dynamic of, as your eyes are more and more open, you see things more as they are.
Yeah, well, and I'll speak to the Calvinists in the room, even though not everybody listening to this is a Calvinist. But just don't forget that God works through means. Just just because you are His elect doesn't mean that you're just automatic. I don't know if you could hear that snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't mean that you're auto sanctified, and God does work through means.
Yeah.
You need to be on the ball still.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure everyone who has a high view of the sovereignty of God has at one point entertained the insane idea that, well, I don't need to pray. God's going to do what He's going to do anyway.
Yeah,
It's not like He's explicitly enjoined in His Word repeatedly that we should pray all the time. Like I can
without ceasing, something like that. Yeah,
yeah, and I think it's one of the areas that um, we're in danger of, to coin a phrase, over theologizing our way into sort of very peculiar ideas. I had a conversation recently with someone who was so, I think in a good way, was so persuaded that when Christ died, He died for all of her sins, past, present, and future. But she believed this in a way that meant that she no longer asked for forgiveness. When she sinned, she would stop, and instead of saying, "Lord, forgive me," she would say, "God, thank you that you've already forgiven me for that." And we just had this conversation, and I had to say, Jesus says in the Lord's Prayer that everyday disciples are meant to say, "Forgive us our sins."
yeah,
And I love that you believe that all your sins, past, present, and future, have been atoned for at the cross of Christ, but you must not theologize your way into being unable to pray something that Jesus told you to pray.
yeah,
And I think that dynamic applies to our view of the sovereignty of God. Scripture teaches that God is sovereign, that God is in the heavens, and whatever He pleases, that's what He does, and that nothing happens to any of us. Not a hair can fall from our heads without without our Father's will. And yet we can't over theologize the sovereignty of God to the point where we can't obey the very simple command that He gives us all the time to pray.
yeah,
And so, it may be that we can't get our heads around how the sovereignty of God and the real power of prayer can actually be reconciled. We don't need to reconcile those two questions. We simply need to trust that God is sovereign and do what He says, which is pray. So,
yeah. Yeah, I may not be able to tell you the exact specifics of how that works, but all I do know is that God is sovereign and He has chosen to use your prayers, and that's to me, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We don't live and this is just like a hyperbolic, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Hyper Calvinist. That's
Yeah,
the word
there
I'm
you go.
looking for. Sorry, my brain's not working today. This is a hyper Calvinist idea that we're just kind of going through this plain world that's already all set out for us, and none of our decisions have any weight or anything. And there is a certain like wisp of truth in that, but at the same time, even though God is sovereign, He has chosen to use our prayers. And even we talk about evangelism at the beginning of the episode, to use our weak, the weak, frail words to others to change their hearts, and that's just I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, some of these very deep theological questions, I frequently will reach for Deuteronomy 29:29.
I definitely know that off the top of my head.
Which is
I don't.
The secret things.
See, if we were doing games today and Deuteronomy 29:29 was on the scripture scramble, you would have nailed it. Dang it.
The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that He's revealed belong to us and to our children, now and
Mm,
forevermore.
I
And
should
I
know that one.
and I think that this is where um, there are these deep mysteries. The compatibility of divine sovereignty and human freedom, the relationship between God's eternal counsel of will and His genuine apparent responsiveness to our prayers. Like,
Hmm.
I think of these are like, to draw a metaphor from mythology, this is like the Gordian knot, and it can't be unpicked and it can't be untangled. But the sword that just cuts through the middle of it is just do what you're told. Like,
Yeah.
God says pray, I'm going to pray. God says
Yeah.
preach the gospel, I'm going to preach the gospel. Like, God says I'm responsible for my actions, well, I better not act like that's not true. And, in a way, just can we just take God at His word?
Yeah.
If we could do that and then do what the psalmist says, again, going to pull a reference, I think it might be Psalm 134, something like that, where it says, I do not concern myself with things that are too lofty for me. But
Mm,
like a child, a weaned child with its mother, I've quietened my soul.
yeah.
And for some of these things, there's for people who are really into theology, and I'm one of them, and I know you are as well, we can be standing in the shower for 25 minutes trying to unpick the relationship between divine sovereignty and human responsibility, because that's how our minds work. But sometimes in the scriptures, it just says we cannot concern ourselves with these things. But like a child with a child with his mother, let's just quieten our souls with the Lord and bask in the fact that God is sovereign, and not take that as license to shirk responsibility. So yeah,
Yeah. Or be antinomian or
yeah,
any of the
exactly, yeah.
things like that. Yeah. Yeah. There are obviously times where I do sit in the shower for 25 minutes and think about that exact thing. And then my wife is like, what are you doing in there? Uh, but most of the time, I'm just content to say God is sovereign and He has ordained means. That much is clear.
Yeah,
How everything in between works,
yeah,
you know what? We'll figure it out in glory together.
yeah, or not.
Or
Like,
not. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, that's cool, man. We've,
Yeah.
we've
So,
spent a good bit amount of time talking about sovereignty. This is definitely a Calvinist podcast now.
yeah.
So yeah,
Do we bring up Romans 8 or Romans 9 or
yeah,
what? Should we read it verbatim?
yeah. It's something something whoever he something. Yeah,
Ephesians 1, maybe we'll bring
yep.
that in. Armenians, we love you. We love you
Yeah.
too. That's actually something I kind of wanted to ask about as well. Um, at least near me, it is kind of maybe shifting a little bit, but the ratio there of reformed leaning, reformed-ish, I guess I'll say.
Hmm.
Some Presbyterians don't like it if Baptists say that word, but reformed-ish
Yeah.
to non-reformed, the ratio there, at least near me, is very heavily on the non-reform side.
Hmm.
Given some of the history in Scotland, what do you think the ratio would be there?
Yeah. I mean, if you go by the official doctrinal statement of the national church, um, they would claim still to be a Calvinist and Reformed denomination. Um, every Church of Scotland minister still has to swear an oath to uphold the Westminster Confession of Faith, but I think probably almost 100% of them do that with their fingers crossed. So, um, yeah, it would be really hard to say. I don't actually know the answer to that question. There are still genuine Reformed ministers in the Church of Scotland. Uh, there are, um, they're the biggest denomination still, although they are shrinking. The second biggest is the Scottish Episcopal Church, which is an Anglican denomination. It's every bit as liberal as the Episcopal Church in America. The third biggest, I think, is the Roman Catholic Church, and then um, you're into very small numbers at this stage because the next biggest denominations are all in the there's maybe 100 or a couple of hundred of congregations. So
Hmm.
we're we're in a tiny minority. Certainly, that would be true to say. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and, obviously that's not to say that for the Arminians' sake that are listening, that's not to say that we don't want your churches around, but I think it's a good question to ask.
It's not even to say that the majority of Church of Scotland congregations or ministers would be Arminian, even.
Yeah.
To be Arminian in the true sense still requires like a significant amount of belief in the scriptures, which,
yeah,
without throwing stones, I'm not sure I could say is definitely true in the Church of Scotland. So, and certainly not in the Episcopal Church, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if, like you said, if it's anything like the Episcopal Church over here, then anything goes. Yeah, sadly.
Yeah, I was once at an Anglican service, and the minister, the female minister, said she pronounced the benediction at the end in the name of the parent and of the child and of the dancing spirit.
Wow.
And my daughter, who was 4 at the time, said, "That's silly." And I was like, "Yep, you're correct, my love. Yes."
Yeah, that's how you know you're raising them right. Yeah, that is crazy. I have a good friend that his son, I'll just say he doesn't always get social cues, which sometimes is just phenomenal, because they are, like me, very Sabbatarian. And someone in their church was saying how they went before church to go get coffee. And he walked right up to that person and said, "You need to stop doing that."
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. And we could go on for another 45 minutes about catechizing your children now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's important. Yeah.
It is very important. I believe we've talked about that on the podcast before, but if we haven't, I will just say catechize your children.
Yeah.
It is great. There are times where it's very difficult. There are times where it will bring you to tears with how much fruit it bears. But do you have a book, real quick? Do you have any books off the top of your head on catechesis, maybe?
Yeah, I do actually. If you give me 1 second, I can go and grab it. Why don't you talk for a second?
Yeah. I'll stall. Yeah. Myself and my family, I started catechizing. My oldest is 7 now. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I believe my oldest was 4 when I started catechizing them. And we don't have a whole incredible amount of questions and answers memorized, but even the bit that we do in those 3 years, and we've talked about family worship on Pete's episode, but my kids will never be able to deny that they know the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've heard it. Yeah. The book I was going to recommend is called Catechizing Our Children by Terry L. Johnson, who writes so well. I was sure he was Scottish, but he's actually from he's the senior minister of Independent Presbyterian Church in Savannah, Georgia. But this is published by Banner of Truth. It's a short book. It's really, really well worth the read. And he also has an excellent little booklet on the Sabbath, which I would recommend. I can't find the title of that, but his little book on keeping the Sabbath is excellent.
Nice.
So it's so thin it's just stapled together. So you can hand it out to anyone.
Yeah, and they can't lie and say they don't have time to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is let me see. This is 85 pages. Little booklet. Banner of
Finish
Truth.
that in an evening, guys.
Yeah, I think I got this for like £4 or something. So yeah. Recommend that. Terry L. Johnson, Catechizing Our Children. Nice. Of course, he's speaking about the shorter catechism from Westminster, but we can substitute something a little.
We can substitute one of the better ones.
Something a little bit more richly hydrated, So.
Yeah, something fully submerged. Yeah, if you have trouble finding a catechism, there's plenty out there. Hercules Collins, I believe, he had a pretty good one. Keach's Catechism as well, for Baptists.
Yeah.
If you're a Presbyterian, that's a bit easier.
Yeah.
But
I'll also do a little plug for an independent publishing house here in Scotland
yeah,
who publish the 1689, the Baptist Catechism, and an Orthodox Catechism by Hercules Collins. That's Parasia Books. If anyone wants to look those up, it's
spell that.
Parasia, Parresia books.org, and they publish a bunch of stuff, but they publish the sort of Baptist uh, catechisms and the confession. Lovely editions, and they're produced by a couple of Reformed Baptist pastors here in Scotland. So
Nice.
I always recommend them. They're very good.
Yeah, I might have to take a look at that.
Yeah, they're sewn bindings and everything, all that good stuff. So,
ooh, nice. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I appreciate you hopping on for this bonus episode. We are definitely going to have you on for a proper episode and bully you with our games.
I look forward to it. Yeah, I hope this has been helpful. I feel like I've just talked a whole lot, and I don't know if I've contributed much, but hopefully, it's been of some benefit to someone. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll have to have you on again soon. To the audience, rate us 5 stars for that. I mean, come on, Daniel's great. you got to hear the beautiful Scottish accent for an hour and 10 minutes now. You got to rate 5 stars for that. You got to.
Yeah, and take a star off for every sentence or phrase that I said that you couldn't understand.
If they can't understand, then that's their problem. I think it was all very clear, and
you said it, not me. So
yeah. No subtitles needed in post, Tyler. Just to let you know, I think we're good on that. Subtitles on a audio podcast, nice. But anyway, I'm not sure if there's anything you wanna plug. You're a humble man, Daniel. You're not putting your voice out there on the internet like a weirdo like I am.
No, well,
I guess you are right now.
If you invite me back on, I may have something to promote at that point. But at the moment, currently, I do not. So,
right.
But my only plug is read your Bible, pray, and go to church, for goodness sake.
Hey, that's as good of a plug as you could. That's such a pastor's plug too.
That's my call to action. Is just go to church.
Yeah. Did I see a hand in the back?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and not like, in full seriousness, I think it is the burden of any pastor. I'm sure all of you guys who go to church and have a pastor, they would say exactly the same thing. I hope is there's nothing that we want more than our people to be walking closely with the Lord, knowing His Word deeply, blessed by fellowship. So I don't mean to come across as particularly pious and holy and excellent. It's just just that's what we want. That's what we live for. So
well, and that's kind of the thing about being a pastor is you kind of have to. I'm not saying you come across, trying to seem extra pious or holy or anything, but you're the one that has to call people to those things, and that to some people it's just naturally going to sound like that. And I don't think there's any reason to worry about that.
Well, thank you.
You're not pious or holy. I'm just kidding.
Well, that's what I think.
That was a joke. So, no, that was a joke.
The chief of sinners. I'm beating my breast now. I'm gonna, sackcloth.
Yeah, there's some things that probably shouldn't come out of my mouth. Maybe that was one of them, but we don't cut anything here, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to be on. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys, and give me an @ on X at Overtheologizer if you want to have Daniel back. We'll see you guys on the next episode.